Welcome back to Sunday Vibes, one and all, me, Chris, and Patrick Van Stride, in your ear holes and your eye holes on a Sunday morning. What more could you want? Lads, how are you? Christopher, you go first. How's your week been?
Yeah, it's been all right. Done a couple of episodes of Snapchat. That's been a first for me because you and Zach were off, weren't you? So just sort of stepped in to fill the void. If you want to go check that out, then we have two channels. We have a Football Daily Snapchat channel, the main channel, and we also have a Transfer Talk channel. So get to know. What about you, Van Strauss?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Like, I don't really have anything to report, though. When Joe said eye holes, I thought of that guy. You know that guy in Rick and Morty who, like, parachutes out of nowhere and starts kicking the shit out of you because you're eating his eye holes?
I've never seen Rick and Morty, mate.
Ah, mate, it's class.
Oh, you'd like it? You'd like it?
I don't know whether I would. I don't know whether it's up my street, I'll be honest with you. I'm not the biggest fan of, like, cartoon comedy.
Well, also, Rick and Morty, it's a little bit like football, and to be honest, anything that has, like, a big fan base, like, tends to start being full of arseholes after a while, and I think the fans make it a little bit hard to enjoy it, like Marvel movies.
Yeah, I can already picture the comments now saying, Joe's never watched Rick and Morty.
Yeah, exactly.
On to me. Just shut your mouths. Let's crack on with the football chat. Because the question this week was sent in by Swagato Saka 99. It says, which Premier League manager do you think should be sacked immediately? Which we kind of all agree was a little bit harsh.
Jesus.
And I don't really think there's any outstanding candidates. So we've kind of pivoted this question a little bit. So what we're going to be doing today is grading every one of the Premier League managers' seasons so far. So we'll do it in alphabetical order and we'll give them a sort of school grade. In the UK, that kind of goes from A star being the best, you know, A star A, all the way down to like an F, or we got U's, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
U's. In my high school, but I don't know whether there'll be any U candidates today. U is like, I mean, I don't know what you've been doing this whole college course.
Yeah, you is like you put your name at the top and then just off.
And then left the room. Yeah, literally. Let's start with Arsenal then. Mikel Arteta, Pato. We've got 20 to get through, so we can't spend ages on each one. But are you happy with him? Were you giving him above a C here?
I think a C is probably about right, isn't it? Like, I mean, I don't really know, man. It depends how we're splitting up the jobs of manager, right? Because I think that one of his major mistakes was going into the season without a proper attacking midfielder. Like, that was absolutely ridiculous. And the thing is, since Christmas, if you look at the stats since Christmas Day, Arsenal have been one of the best sides in the league. Like, I don't think we've really had that many performances. Even losses like the Wolves loss, that should have really been a win. The Villa one was pretty even. The only games where I thought we were like substantially worse than the opponents were Man City and Man United. I thought we were the worst side in both of those games, like comfortably. But actually, like our stats have been very, very good since Christmas. Like, we look like one of the better sides in the league. We look like sort of a team that you'd expect to be about somewhere between 4th and 6th, I'd say, like if we'd played that way the whole season. But if you're going to give Arteta credit for that, I think you've also got to criticize him for the absolutely horrific months that came before that, where we were playing in a totally incoherent way. We weren't really pressing. The structure made no sense. Players were being used out of position, and we were just getting outshot regularly. And I think that if we hadn't had those 3 months, we'd actually probably be in a reasonably good position now. But the reason that we're 10th at the moment is not because we're currently playing like a 10th place team. It's because we were playing like a 15th place team for like the first half of the season, and now we're probably playing like more like a 5th or 6th place team. So I don't know. I mean, overall, I think jury's out on Arteta, but at least we're getting better at the moment rather than getting worse. And I do think that now you look at that squad and you think a couple of good signings in the right positions, and you can actually see how there could be a drastic improvement next season. So yeah, I think there are reasons to be positive, but I'm not necessarily convinced. I don't know. Those are down to players. I mean, a bit. At the moment, I'm just not sure what is Arteta and what isn't. So I think like a C is perfectly fair.
Yeah, I think C's about right. But if you said on paper, you know, Arsenal are 10th in the league in like mid-March, then you'd probably say it would be worse than a C.
Yeah,
but
I think that's fair.
I kind of agree with you. You are on like an upward trajectory, and I actually do think you're playing some all right football. But in recent like months, like, we've just been so unlucky with some horrendous single decisions being made, like by the likes of Xhaka giving the ball away, some really poor officiating. So I would maybe do a C-. For
I think that's
Arteta,
fair. I think that's fair.
I would maybe go C-. Hamill, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think they're probably like the 9th or 10th best team in the Premier League right now. So maybe they've been a little bit unfortunate, but like you said, not substantially. Like I feel like they're a Europa League quality side. But I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think C-. Yeah, I'll go with that. I'm happy to go with that.
All right, so we're giving Arteta C-. Let's go Aston Villa then. Dean Smith. I think Dean Smith's got to be right up there. He's got to be one of the best pupils in the class, Hamster.
Yeah, I mean, you know how I like to overthink these sort of situations. So when I sat down to have a brief think about this 10 minutes before shooting, I said to myself, how am I going to judge people? Is it resources versus performance? Is it like their ability to influence the game, the manager? But if we're grading the season, I suppose it does make things a little bit easier. But I mean, Dean Smith, what are they, 9th in the table on 40 points at the moment, 2 games in hand, 10 behind Chelsea. I mean, Villa fans, this is practically dreamland for them, isn't it, at the moment? They have slipped in 2021 a little bit, 12th in the Premier League for form since the turn of the year, 4 wins from 12. Emilio Martinez has been doing his utmost to keep them in various games, hasn't he? He's been absolutely superb. I think his post-shot XG is something stupid, like 8. And I do like that he catches it. You know, that he clearly wants to catch the ball. He takes great pride in catching the ball. Still the 3rd tightest defence. I would go for around a B. I do think it's a little bit odd the way that people are they're sort of lumping praise on Aston Villa for their recruitment, right? When in 1920 they did spend £150 million and they had a very, very bloated wage bill. Like they've sorted some of those problems out this term. Ollie Watkins now looks like a bargain at 27.7 million. Bertrand Traore's had patches where he's been good, but I still think there's question marks over him at 16 mil. I suppose, yeah, Martinez at 15 has been one of the bargains of the season. And we'll see how like Sanson fares. Cash has been very good. I would go with a B. If you asked me this maybe at the turn of the year, it probably would have been an A. Maybe a B plus, I'm thinking at the moment.
I would also agree with you, a B. I would have given him an A at the turn of the year, but it has been a little bit of a slump. I think defensively, the improvements Aston Villa have made this season have just been incredible. And I don't know whether that's come on the coaching side of it, whether that's just purely the recruitment of Martinez and Cash, but I think Ezri Konsa has made huge strides this season. Tyrone Mings doesn't look as sort of Bambi on ice as he did occasionally last year. Still not my favourite defender in the league, but I think when paired with Konsa, he looks pretty solid. And Matty Target is very impressive as well. And Douglas Luiz continues just to kind of mop up in front of them, doesn't he? So I would also give him a B. I think Dean Smith taking them from relegation fodder to what should have been comfortable top half finishes, I think is pretty impressive. Pat, you happy with a B?
I think a B plus, like, because I think it's a weird thing, isn't it, where people will say like, oh, Dean Smith has done an amazing job, but also Grealish is one of the best players in the league. Like, I mean, how do we figure out who kind of gets credit for the attack? But I completely agree about the defense. Like, I don't think that they've got great defensive talent. I certainly don't really think they've got good defensive midfielders at all. And so the fact that they look pretty solid, I mean, admittedly with like a substantial hand there from Martinez, like that to me is a real coaching triumph from Dean Smith. So yeah, I don't know. This could kick up into an A by the end of the season. It depends how they finish.
Yeah, they'd conceded 50 goals by this point last season. They've only conceded 27 times this time round. So that is such a marked improvement. It definitely warrants B plus A territory. But let's see where they are when they've caught up on games as well. Because they have slipped in recent weeks, haven't they? It's cost them a grade.
All right, this next one, this could be a bit of a controversial one, I feel. This could be one of the hottest debated gradings is Graeme Potter. You know what, Chris, you should go first on this one because I feel like you are going to grade him high.
Yeah, I think if you look at it objectively, like most people would grade him pretty reasonably, right? I mean, even if you don't like expected goals or expected points, I mean, you look at the table now. Apparently, they should have 20 more points than they've racked up at current, and there's like 5-minute reels going round on Twitter, like depicting.
Yeah, I watched that.
Depicting like awful open goal misses by a litany of strikers, and I say strikers in inverted commas because they haven't played like that, have they? An awful lot this season. So I I know it's quite fun to like beat up on the XG brigade, and like it's becoming funny how unlucky Potter is, and I think people are sort of getting a little bit like are taking enjoyment out of it. But you look at that squad, you look at the talent within that squad. There is good players in there, players that he's brought on. You look at players that have missed throughout the campaign. So Tariq Lamptey, of course, was vital to the way they were playing beforehand. Veltman stepped in very well. Bought Veltman for 600k. It's spinning a few plates here. I think recruitment was solid. I think the performances getting out of the current talent in his squad warrant at least a B.
Whoa, at least a B. So in your gut, you want to give him an A? Then is that what you're saying?
Maybe their failure to get a better striker in the winter window to help arrest the slump could bring them down somewhat. Although that would contradict what we're saying in terms of sticking with the system, that Maupay's bad luck isn't going to last this long. Like, he is a fine Premier League striker. I think he probably is the only fine Premier League striker at the club. But yeah, it's getting harder and harder to convince people that he's just an unlucky guy, right? But I am going to stick with that, and it's a hill I'm willing to die on this season in the Premier League.
So you're going B. Pat, you happy with a B?
Yeah, I think I am.
Well, I think more B minus C territory, has to be said.
I think that the numbers overrate them a little bit.
Yeah, because they're not the fourth best side in the Premier League where expected points wants to put them. That's
yeah, and they've been behind a lot this season because they keep not scoring their chances. And when you're behind a lot, you tend to rack up a bunch of shots. But they're like a +5 shot team. Like, +5 shots is like, that's like, it's better than Liverpool 13-14 when they nearly won the league. Like, it's that level. Like, that's pretty damn good. Like, and I don't know, like, when you look at the talent as well in that team, there's not that much. There really isn't. Like, I mean, I like a lot of their players, but they're not like a particularly talented squad. Like, they're getting a lot of change out of guys like Trossard and Welbeck. Like, these guys are producing stuff for them, which is pretty remarkable. I really like Basuma. I like Maupay a lot more than most people do, and I think we all like Lamptey, though he's been out for a while.
Ben White as well.
Yeah, but you still look around the squad and you think, like, Jesus, like, this is not... Like, Adam Lallana is putting up numbers for them. Like, that's pretty impressive stuff. So as a coaching job, I think that Potter's doing really, really well. And fundamentally, like, I think Potter he should have enhanced his reputation with this season.
And I think he did, didn't he? When he went through that good spell, this is what annoys me about people's analysis of Potter, that when he went through that good spell, when they beat Tottenham and they beat Liverpool, like, the pundits were on board with Graeme Potter doing a fantastic job. And then, like, so much analysis or just overall, feeling is driven by results. So I do think it's just, you go to the table, it's not commensurate with what we're saying about Graeme Potter right now. But yeah, at various points, like, Adam Webster has looked like Franz Beckenbauer this season, and there's like, Basuma has been linked with Real Madrid. Like, that's probably never happened in Brighton's history, to have a player linked with a team of that caliber, which shows that, in general, Potter is, like Pat said, he's improving players, which is the mark of a great coach. Like, I don't think there's a lot of Premier League managers that improve players in the way that he's done. Well, at least this campaign, or in the last 18 months. There's a lot of managers that are just reliant on bringing in talent and spending a lot of money. But yeah, I would go with a B- then, to meet you halfway, Tomlinson.
Okay. Yeah, I just don't think he's had a better season than Dean Smith. And I think if we're giving Dean Smith a B, to give Graeme Potter higher than a B, I think is being kind.
But Dean Smith's had better results and he's got better players.
Yeah, he has got better resources. I definitely agree with that. So yeah, I'm happy to give him a B-, because I also, as much as I do like to banter you about him, I do think Graeme Potter's a very, very good coach. Let's move on then to Burnley. Sean Dyche. Now, Burnley, they're like scraping out of the relegation zone here. But if we talk about a lack of resources, Sean Dyche is the king of making the most of absolutely none. He never gets any signings through the door. Was it Dale Stephens he picked up in the summer? That was the only player he was able to bring in. And despite what was a horrendous start, he has like clawed them to safety now, or at least at the time of recording. And I do believe they'll stay in the Premier League this season. I don't see them as one of the 3 worst sides. I think given his resources, Sean Dyche, season in, season out, does a really good job. So I would like to give him a sort of C as well, that sort of territory. Anything lower than that, I think, is really harsh, because the squad is just I mean, it's just pants, isn't it, really, on paper?
Well, yeah, but I mean, do managers like play a part in that? Because it's not just last summer that determines that the squad is rubbish. Like, it's been this way for a while. Like,
but he has no money to spend. He has no money to spend.
How he can't have no money to spend. Like, Burnley have been a Premier League side for some time now, and they could have bought players over the last few seasons that would have improved it. And you know Sean Dyche had the ability to do that. There was also a point where they could have sold Tarkowski for between 30 and 40 million. And are you telling me that it was better for them to keep Tarkowski than to take that money and invest it in the squad?
I do think if they'd have sold Tarkowski, they'd have definitely gone down, though. Tarkowski and me are the only two players keeping him in the division.
I don't think that's true at all. I think that's
and Pope.
I think the strength of Burnley is in their system, less in their personnel. Even though I do like Tarkowski, like I just don't think that's true. Whenever people are like, if this player had gone, they'd have been relegated, I find that to be not very believable, especially when it's a defender. But
like Ben Mee at the start of the season when he was injured, they genuinely couldn't win a game. And like since he's come back, they've actually been significantly improved at the back. Like him and Tarkowski, like playing for Burnley, they're both players that could be playing at a top 8 club.
Have they been better at the back, or have they just got like, you know, the rub of the green? Like this is a minus 5 shots a game side. Like I think since like 2008 or 2009, there have been like 22 sides that have had a worse shot differential than that in the Premier League, and half of those got relegated. And a couple of the ones that stayed up were other Sean Dyche Burnley sides. Like, I mean, this is just what they do. Like, the reason he doesn't get like an E or something is because like the squad is horrific, and like Neil Lennon got more investment at Celtic than Sean Dyche got at Burnley, which is ludicrous. But I do think that he's got to take some responsibility for the state the squad's in, because it is his job to improve it year on year.
What would an A be for Sean Dyche, though? 10th?
It would be probably not necessarily. It's not about position in the table. Like, there was a point a couple of years ago, actually, where their numbers were really, really good and they deserved to be much higher in the league than they were. Like, I don't really know what it would be, but it would certainly not be like one of the worst shot differentials in Premier League history and basically staying up because there just happen to be like historically terrible teams below you. And I mean, they could still go down. I just don't think they will, because I think Newcastle are worse.
I'm just thinking, trying to think in quite simple terms. If we're talking squad building, if we're talking... I'm more inclined to agree with Joe in that, like, I don't think there's been any money to invest, just especially given the confusion over the change of hands at ownership level, right, and how that was financed. And there's still some question marks have been raised over that. And when you're starting, you know, or finishing the season, with Vidra up front, who I think prior to like the last 2 or 3 games had scored 1 in his previous 26 appearances, you know, in that ballpark, like it does suggest you are desperate, and you're just... The mission is just to survive. And if he does achieve that again with this squad, like, I'd be tempted to give him like CB territory. I do think they are hugely dependent, aren't they, on Pope, me, Tarkowski. But like he's got a little bit of progress out of Brownhill. Like he arrived from Bristol City, didn't he? But like he's made good strides in the Premier League. Like Dwight McNeil, maybe would have liked to have seen a little bit more from him this season in terms of his development.
So what about C-? C-?
Yeah, all right then.
Well, I think C- is fair, because in a lot of ways, my issues with him are not dissimilar to my issues with Arteta. Like, I think that there are squad building mistakes here, which are part of a manager's job.
All right, let's go C- then. Bit of debate about that one. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, what you would have given Sean Dyche. We've got Tuchel up next at Chelsea. He hasn't been here long enough, really, has he?
Yeah, no rating,
or he's unbeaten in 11. So do we just skip the rating for Tuchel?
Yeah,
I think so. He's only been here 10 games. Let's go on to Crystal Palace then. Roy Hodgson.
Roy!
Now, this one I think causes a bit of debate, because I think extremely middling, but when I watch them, I just think they're awful.
They are awful. You're correct to think that. Like, recently I think since Christmas, like, I was looking at some table of this, like XG difference and all this kind of stuff. And I think they're the worst team in the league, like, over the last couple of months, despite the fact they've actually had quite an easy run of fixtures relative to the teams around them. But on the other hand, I don't really blame Hodgson for that. I think they're a horribly run club. I think everything about them is terrible. Like, I mean, it's difficult, isn't it? Because it's kind of like Dyche, where you're like, I like this manager. I think that I think he's talented, but they are god awful.
We did have Hodgson as our underrated manager of the season about 2 months ago.
Because he was doing a really good job in the first half of the season, and it's one of those things as well where you look at the talent and the results he's getting, you're a bit more forgiving of them, aren't they? I know some Crystal Palace fans are a little bit fed up. I don't know where they think a team with Chiarte and a 35-year-old Gary Cahill should be in the Premier League, to be perfectly frank. I would say, hedge my bets as to say not top half. He's got a lot of life out of Milivojevic, McArthur. Eberechi Eze, of course, has been like a shining light in an otherwise pretty dismal season on an attacking front. But like Benteke is now starting up front again. And this was a guy who scored, six goals over 3 campaigns. I know he's had a little bit of a renaissance, if you want to call it that, this season. But it feels like they're holding on until there's a massive, culture change or a big managerial appointment at the club. And it's like the last remnants of the toothpaste, right? Like that's what it feels like right now. They're just like Hodgson's just squeezing that last bit out of these guys.
I couldn't believe the stat that this is the highest amount of points they've ever had in the Premier League at this stage of the season. Like, I couldn't believe that. It doesn't feel like the best Crystal Palace team I've watched in recent years in the Premier League.
Well, that's because it isn't. They don't deserve it. They're rubbish. They're like, if we're going to give Potter credit for underlying performances of his team and saying he's not getting the rub of the green, then similarly we've got to look at Palace and say Palace are lucky to be where they are. Palace should be right in the heart of the relegation battle. I think they've got the second worst attack in the league by XG. I think they've got I think they're about 6 or 7 points ahead of where XG suggests they should be.
But the squad is better. The squad is better than a Burnley, isn't it? It's
way better.
Burnley,
way better. And Newcastle and West Brom. Yeah.
So I think maybe Hodgson probably the lowest rating we've seen of a manager so far. Then are we giving Hodgson a D?
I'd be tempted just to go D+, but I do think something's got to change at the end of this season. But I'm a little less impressed. I think the squad's probably on at a par with Newcastle and maybe Eze. I suppose Eze and Zaha, put it above a team like Burnley. But they know what they're getting with Hodgson, and it does feel like another team that's just set out to survive, each term without any ambition beyond that. And which is why Zaha's tried to leave 3 times, right?
And they might also be worse because while they have added Eze, the rest of the squad's got older. They're still the oldest squad in the league. So it's really hard to figure out. Again, I don't really want to blame Hodgson because I think that if you ask me which is performing better, the people who build the Palace squad or Hodgson, I would definitely say Hodgson. Yeah, I think that Hodgson's still got some life in him, whereas I think Palace are unless they have a serious spending spree in the next couple of summers, Palace are heading for relegation at some point.
There's a bunch of guys out of contract as well at Palace at the end of the season, I think, Van Aanholt.
Oh, that might be good.
It's about 60% of the squad and all of the coaching staff.
Jesus.
They're playing it by the seat of their pants.
Yeah, which again, intimates that Eddie Howe's been linked with the job, right? I mean, I'd like to see him go to Celtic, but if he was brought in, you can understand why they're not renewing the contracts of these players because they don't necessarily match his playing style. And okay, there's at least a little bit of thinking there. But at the moment, it's I feel like it's just let's see where we are at the end of the season, and if we survive yet again, maybe we'll spend a bit of money. But I don't know. Yeah, let's go D+.
All right, let's move on to Everton and then Carlo Ancelotti. Because, Everton, at the moment, just looking at the Premier League table, are 6th, can jump up to 5th, which I think would be a massive success to finish anything around 5th and 6th for Everton under Carlo Ancelotti, even though the squad has been vastly improved. But I think the squad is only vastly improved because of Carlo. I don't think you've ever seen the likes of James and Allen joining the club if Carlo wasn't there. I really think that he's probably in the sort of BA territory for me. I genuinely think he's improved a lot of players in this squad. I think Michael Keane's a hell of a lot better. Dominic Calvert-Lewin's improving week by week. Richarlison, he's had a little bit of a resurgence recently. Even Tom Davis looks pretty passable in midfield whenever I watch him.
Yeah.
So I think Carlo Ancelotti's been exceptional this year. I would go B+, I think, for me.
Fair enough. Yeah, it's one of those ones where I'd go B plus A for the first half of the season. I feel like when I've watched them recently, they've been a little bit ragged, and I suppose injuries have cost them in a big way. There's I don't think there's been a lot of points this season where Decore, James, and Alan have actually played together, right? It has been a little bit cobbled together in midfield. Yeah, Dominic Calvert-Lewin's improvement should it definitely feels like it's down to the coaching. I don't know how much I have to say on Everton at the minute. I feel like I've just been less impressed with them in recent weeks. What do you think, Pat?
I think they've been less impressive in recent weeks. But I think that's partially due to injuries. I mean, I think Ancelotti's done a good job here. I agree with the sort of B+ territory because when Arsenal lost to Everton away before Christmas, there were loads of Arsenal fans who were just like, well, I mean, Everton's squad is like, it's better than ours right now. And I was like, are you serious? Like, look at Everton's squad. There are massive holes in Everton's squad. And Ancelotti has cobbled together a pretty decent side out of it. Like, I agree. He definitely deserves credit for the improvement of Calvert-Lewin. He's had to deal, yes, with long absences for guys like Alan. I mean, I want to ding him a little bit for loaning out Moise Kean, who's having a good season at PSG and probably would have been a useful player for them in the absence of Calvert-Lewin. But when I see like Gylfi still starting for them, you know, or Bernard getting minutes or whatever, I think this is pretty damn good from Carlo Ancelotti. And given that when he was appointed, we were like, we love Carlo Ancelotti, but we have no idea if he's up to like making a team work which has like this sort of thin squad. I think he's proved us wrong. I think he's done a good job.
I think it's because it's gone up and down, right? Like I remember watching them against Tottenham or against Liverpool. You know, their first league victory at Anfield since 1999. Like historic things have happened this season, and then they'll go and lose to Fulham. So it's like I've been disappointed with their consistency in a season that's been, I think, quite forgiving at the top of the table. Like if they were performing like this, would they just be around 7th or 8th when other big sides have their together, and we wouldn't necessarily be lauding them as much because less than 10 shots a game, like sometimes they can be quite dull to watch. They're not like a possession heavy side. But yeah, like a 52% win rate for Carlo Ancelotti at this point in his Everton career. I think they're ahead of schedule, and for that, I would agree with a B+.
All right, B+. Let's move on then to Fulham. Scotty Parker. Significant turnaround recently, I would say. They definitely look more solid at the back recently, and that is largely down, I would say, to Anderson. I do really like Tosin as well. I have been seriously impressed by Anderson. He just seems to be getting better and better, and I know that it was kind of a risky pickup in the sense that people weren't sure whether his reputation was as high as it once was, but he's been unreal with like Areola back there, and I do think they play nice football. When I watch Fulham play, they're a bit of a joy to watch at times. So I'm hesitant to hammer Parker too much here. I think he could be in the category of, if he keeps this squad in the division, because it's still very possible, very, very possible. They're only 1 point off safety. Then I think he deserves quite a lot of credit. I'm tempted at the moment to give him about a C-, D maybe, a D plus maybe.
I would like C. I like a C-. Pat sounds a little bit reticent, but I think like if I'm going to give Brighton some bandwidth, right, for having good underlying numbers, then, Fulham are starting to approach that sort of territory. And I've seen a bit of a tactical versatility to Fulham that I don't think anyone anticipated at the start of the season, right? And there is, when you say there's joy to watching them, like I agree. There seems to be, like Parker, whilst developing a more defensively sound system. I think they have the tightest defence now behind Manchester City since December the 1st, which is pretty impressive in itself. But like I think they complete the most dribbles per night in the Premier League. Like there's a bunch of guys who are really fun to watch, right? And I'm glad that Anguissa has come good, because obviously we banged on about him for a couple of seasons. Lookman, good, very good player, man. And these are the sort of teams you want to survive in the Premier League. Like, I don't want to see a Newcastle stay in the Premier League at the expense of a Fulham.
I'm a little bit torn on Parker because, like, the thing is, the squad is a lot better than quite a few other squads in the Prem. Like, I think it should stay up just on strength of squad. Like, it's better. It's better than Sheffield United. It's better than West Brom. It's better than Newcastle. It's better than Burnley. It's better than Palace, and it's potentially better than Southampton.
But other bigger teams could have gone and got these players right, though, Pat. Like, they didn't cost a lot. A lot of them are loan deals. Like, do we not give Fulham credit for the way they've assembled this team?
Yeah, but do we give Parker credit for that? Like, I mean, like that's the thing, right? Like, I don't really know. So like, I think that they should stay up. So if they end up getting relegated, then I think it's actually been a terrible season for Parker. On the other hand, he's clearly done some good stuff. Like, now you're talking about the defense and saying, oh, you know, Anderson or whatever. To me, the thing that makes the defense great is that they've got 3 really good defensive midfielders. Like, really rangy, good defensive midfielders in Ongisa, in Lemina, and Harrison Reed. They've all been really good. And the thing about Parker is that, like, he did change stylistically kind of around the time they drew with Newcastle. I had talked about this with Henry on the podcast. They did become a slightly more conventional relegation threatened side where, like, yes, they're still a possession team, but they've been way less focused on keep ball than they were at the beginning of the season. And the interesting thing about that is sometimes teams change style and they get a couple of signature wins. So, like, Arteta did this, right? Like, Arteta went to the 4-2-3-1, played Smith Rowe, got an immediate big win over Chelsea, and he was like, right, okay, we'll stick with this. And in a way, that's an easier decision. Whereas Parker changed style, and they actually really just got a few draws at first, and then lost some games. They didn't get a signature win, but Parker still saw that they'd improved without getting those results. He understood that he'd made a change that was having an effect, even without it like necessarily making a difference to their results. And that, I think, is a sign of an intelligent manager. Like, that is a sign that he was watching and he was really kind of understanding what was going on the pitch. So I think that actually, like, Parker's probably gone up in my estimation, but I also think that he needs to keep this team up, like, to have had a good season. So it's a difficult one for me. Like, I'm kind of pro Scott Parker, but I also think I'm quite a lot higher on the Fulham squad than, like, the average pundit is. I think, you know, like, the way we talk about guys like Ongisa and Lookman is at odds with how they were perceived before the season started by, like, the general football press. So I'm a little bit unsure. Like, I'm happy to go for a C, but equally, if you guys were like B-, I'd be okay with that. And equally, if you guys said D+, I'd probably be okay with that as well, you know?
If it became very clear that he was behind the signing of Robinson from Wigan, was it, and Areola, Adebayo, and Anderson on loan, then I'd be like, holy shit, his talent identification is on point. Ola Aina as well. Like, no one was really interested in him, despite, you know, a couple of solid seasons in Serie A, right? But I know that their owner slash, you know, as he sort of christened himself, head of recruitment, is pretty active on Twitter, and he seemingly likes to take credit for these signings. So maybe it wasn't him. So I think C is fair.
Yeah, C- though. I don't think. I think C- D is more the territory we should be leaning towards, just because they are like 1 point off of safety and they like have played a game more. So yeah, I would say that sort of territory, right? Leeds is up next. Marcelo Bielsa, definitely one of the most entertaining sides to watch in the league. Every single time Leeds are playing on TV, I want to watch them. And you'd have to say, being 11th. Pretty much safe now, 35 points. You guarantee effectively them to get the extra 5 points. If they finish on 50 points or 45 points, it's been a very good season for Marcelo Bielsa. I don't think anybody was expecting Leeds to break into the Europa League, but if they finish sort of 10th or 11th or 12th, I think that's been a really good start to life in the Premier League, given how entertaining their football is and how they've been able to break through players like Rafinha, like Meslier. I've been very impressed by Leeds. I would be giving Marcelo Bielsa in and around a B category, I think.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And like, give him a B because he stuck to his guns, and the English press resent him for it. They resent the fact that Leeds have been able to come up and survive with like a gung-ho style of football that doesn't like fulfill the norms of what it takes to survive in the Premier League. You know, grit, determination, big tackles, etc. So yeah, he's come up, he's done it his own way, and he's added a dynamite little Brazilian to the mix. I don't know if Rafinha played under him like very briefly at Lille. I don't know if they were there at the same time, but what a find he is at 15 mil.
Yeah, and also I think Bamford like scoring goals has massively helped him out. His faith in Patrick Bamford as a striker, I think, should probably be credited there because he knows he's going to create a lot of chances for him. Happy with the B pat in there?
Yeah, definitely minimum. I'd be happy with like an A-, you know. Like, I think Ayling looks amazing as well. I mean, he gets production out of everyone, and like, you know, Arsene Wenger said years ago when Arsene Wenger got criticised for the way that his teams were really attacking and at times a bit naive. He said, the reason my teams play this way is because people work all week, and then when they watch football, they should be entertained. And that's like my philosophy, that we are here to entertain people. And in like a really boring year, every time I've watched Leeds, I've been entertained.
Yeah.
So I give him enormous credit for that. It's like I went to see a film and it like made me smile. Like, isn't that the point? Like, good for Marcelo Bielsa. And I absolutely despise everyone who was like, oh, they're naive. They're gonna stay up. They've been at times hilarious to watch, but they play genuinely. Some of the football they play is legitimately amazing. I love Leeds.
Just tapping into what you were saying there, the hallmark of a great coach, taking someone like Liam Cooper, who was sort of
I literally don't know who that is.
Starting centre half for him, who was kind of festering in the Championship beforehand. And when you watch Leeds play, he seeing the improvement in someone like him is astounding. And I remember watching the Leeds doc on Amazon or Netflix, wherever it was, and him being like, the only change I wish for in my football career was to have met Marcelo Bielsa earlier. And yeah, just to improve players like that and bring them from obscurity. And they've got the most aesthetically pleasing passes in the league. Definitely down to coaching as well. Just that attention to detail, which, of course, is up there for me. Like Llorente, he's slotted in recently, hasn't he? What a lovely passer he is. Cock as well.
Stuart Dallas playing in 22 positions.
Yeah.
Like throughout the season. So yeah, should we do B+ then for Bielsa, just because we're a bit of a love-in with him? Like, meet you in the middle, Pat. Let's go to Leicester then,
guys.
Rodgers.
We are not ripping through this. We're like 40 minutes in, and we're only hitting the L's.
Nice.
Oh my God, we have to speed up a bit. Brendan Rodgers then, I do think probably in conversation for A's here. If not A star. Like, I think given his injuries this season, I think he's done an absolutely tremendous job. So I would happily give him an A.
Yeah, I agree with you. He's improved a lot of young players as well. Tielemans' progress has been noteworthy this campaign. Maddison, if he actually had two functioning hips, they probably would have wrapped up Champions League football by now. Obviously, it remains how they're going to deal with the Barnes and Justin injuries. Fafana has been absolutely class. Pat, anything to add? Because I think people know my thoughts already, so I don't want to bore everyone.
I think they've been they've obviously been lucky. Like, they get a lot of penalties and they've scored more goals than they should have. They've conceded fewer goals than they should have.
Do you think the injuries have balanced that out?
No, not really. I still think the squad is pretty good. But I'd still give him an A-. Like, it's a fairly small criticism. Like, good teams tend to get the rub of things. Like, Brendan Rodgers has done a good job.
Okay, A-. This next one then, this is a talking point, I think. Jurgen Klopp. Given that we would have all definitely, over the last 2 or 3 seasons, 100% give him an A star. We would have said he's like absolutely flying, definitely one of the best 2 managers in the league, and probably is still one of the best 2 managers in the league. But has his season been warranting of like an A? I'm not sure. I think obviously injuries have played a massive role, but I feel like the lack of adaptation to those injuries probably does harm his A chances here.
Like, it's impossible to ignore the extra circumstances surrounding this, isn't it? Like, you want to be sympathetic, but then should that be reflected in a grading? I'm thinking B/C territory straight off the bat.
I'm thinking about B territory, just because we all think he's still like a B. B for Bravo. Yeah. Like B+ maybe.
I think that's pretty kind.
It is. I'm finding it really hard to detach myself from just how I perceive this man, and like that I'd ever give him a C, because he's a brilliant coach, isn't he? And they're on top, on Christmas Day, so it's just unravelled so quickly.
What would you give him then, Pat?
Probably a C-, something like that.
Whoa, that's a discrepancy from where I would give him.
I give him a lot of credit for the way that he's like repurposed players, though I'm also like, has he like done a great job repurposing Fabinho, or is Fabinho just also an excellent centre back? Like, who gets credit for that? I think that the way he's like bitched and moaned and thrown his toys out of the pram this season has been a bit pathetic, and I also think it's actually harmed the team. Like, there have been times where instead of just being like, things aren't going our way at the moment, but I like believe in the squad, believe in the players, which is what we got from him in the past. We got a little bit more of a Mourinho, like hissy fit, which I found quite unimpressive. Because like Man City have had like these sorts of injury crises before, and actually so have pretty much every team in the league. And this is Liverpool's first one. And he's like crying about it like it's unprecedented. Like, it's very bad. It is very bad. It's the worst in the league. But it's not like the only one that's ever happened in football history. So, and also he kind of has a part to play in it by overplaying all these guys for years. So I don't know. Yeah, like they've also lost 6 home games in a row. While I think they've been unlucky, they've lost 6 home games in a row. Like that's insane. Like for any team, that would be bad.
I think the only other teams who have done that in Premier League history is Huddersfield.
Oh, and Huddersfield were like a bunch of like darts players who turned up and been forced to play football. Like it was like last night when I was watching like Mingueza play for Barcelona against PSG, and I was like, this is what I'd be like if I played in this game. He scythed 2 guys down and then headed a ball out for a corner in the space of about 20 seconds. Like, yeah, I mean, it's bad. So I don't know. I don't think you can lose 6 games on a trot, be in serious danger of dropping out of the Champions League places, and still be getting a B. Like that's strong.
Yeah, well, I mean, they can drop to 9th, can't they, if Villa win their games in hand.
What do we start on, Tomlinson? I said a B/C. Like I'd be fairly content with a C+. Maybe the Champions League will be their salvation as well. Like another impressive performance against Leipzig last night.
All right, I'll go C+ then as well. I don't mind doing C+. We're in and around that sort of C, B territory. But anyway, let's move on to Manchester City. Pep Guardiola. Do we just give him an A+ here?
A.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, he would obviously be like a massive A star if it wasn't for like a bit of a grim start to the season. But I feel like recently just totally salvaged that. Obviously 21 wins in a bounce makes him immediately sort of A+ category. Let's not mess around with him for too long then. Let's move on to Man United. Solskjaer. Maybe you guys should give your opinions on where you put him, then I'll react.
If we were ranking this on entertainment every time I watch them, it would be low. Or lower than you'd probably like. You know, like C territory. Most times I've watched Manchester United this campaign, it's bored me senseless.
Okay.
Although when a team does set up or deploy a high line, that there has been the odd goal fest, hasn't there? You have scored a lot of goals. Southampton, Leeds, and
I think they're second top scorers in the league.
But the Southampton game, right? And Leeds would have. What did you beat Leeds? Was it 6-1, 6-2? That's 15 of those goals. So I think that's papered over a few cracks. I would like to see a bit more like tactical, like versatility within that team. Like the problem solving in game, it kind of staggers me how much Bruno has to continue to do at times. Yeah, I'd go B-. I think I'm beating up on him a little bit, but B-.
I think that's harsh. I think like it's the same. It's literally the same 11 that he had to use last year.
But what do you mean had to use? Like this, it's still a very, very good team. Are you telling me that you don't think a better manager can get more out of that team?
I really don't think the squad's amazing.
No, I agree. Like I agree with Chris that a better manager would get more out of that team. But I think the squad is like pretty middling.
I think
best.
it's like 4th, 5th best squad in the league.
They beat Man City with McTominay in midfield, and I get that United fans like McTominay, but he's not very good.
McTominay.
I'd agree with 4th or 5th best squad.
But they're second in the league, so I think that means he's overperforming for his caliber of squad then?
I mean, it's a good question. I think it's been like the performance of the other sides has been quite kind to him during this period. And if you finish in the Champions League places, like that's what you expect, right? And that's what's gonna happen. Like, how would you have ranked Jose when he finished second, but he was still 15 points behind Manchester City?
Yeah, but that was a very good season for United when he finished second on like 82 points. Like that is.
No, I'm genuinely curious. I'm not saying
very, very good season. He would probably been around a B and an A. I would be close between a B and an A for like Ollie this season. I think he's actually done a really good job. I think there's been pretty clear progression on the pitch. I think Rashford continues to get better, and I think Shaw is obviously playing at his absolute peak at the moment, like the best I've seen him play in years, probably ever at Manchester United.
Is he more dependent on one player than other managers in the top 6?
Well, I think you could say the same of anyone, though, couldn't you?
No, I don't think
you could say the same for anyone. If you took Jamie Vardy out for like a long period of time, or if you took Bruno.
Bro, Jamie Vardy scored like 1 goal in his last 12 appearances, and like KDB has come out of Manchester City.
That's not Ollie's fault. That's not like Ollie's fault, is it?
I'm just saying, is he disproportionately reliant on a guy who like is delivered at a staggeringly consistent rate?
But that's because his squad's worse. That's because his squad's worse than if you took KDB out of Man City. Like, he just sticks Foden or Gundogan, or like Pogba's been out for nearly like 8 weeks. He's missed nearly the entirety of last season. So like he's a massive key role for Manchester United this season. I would say Ollie's doing a really good job. Like, I'm always going to defend him, but I think A-, B+ for me.
I'd give Ollie an A-. I mean, like, I don't think the squad is very good at all. Like, I really don't. And, you know, it's certainly worse than, like, Tottenham's. And also, you know, last season, and actually earlier this season, we were giving Dean Smith loads of credit for, like, putting together a system that maximised Jack Grealish. And I mean, like, Man United are maximising Bruno Fernandes. Like, so, I mean, I can't really ding them too much for that. Like, I look at Man United's squad and I'm like, how much better is this squad than, like, Arsenal's? And it's certainly not better than Chelsea's. Like, but they're a way better team. Not necessarily than Chelsea, but certainly like a million times better than Arsenal. So, I mean, I think it's a pretty good job overall, to be honest.
Yeah, I do. Obviously, I see where you're coming from, Hamster, and I agree that the lack of quality from teams around him is definitely helping him. But I think he's doing a pretty solid job right now.
I think you're the probably fourth or fifth best side in the league right now, and that for me would be like where Manchester City's hierarchy would expect Ollie to finish. So I sometimes I just don't get why he curries, you know, a bit of favour. But how long is he into the job now? 2.5, 3 years?
2.5 years, yeah.
He's doing like a solid job, I guess. But okay, I've been outvoted. A- it is. I'm fine with that.
B+, A- sort of territory that we'll give him, in and around there. Let's go Newcastle then, because we are dragging our heels on this 50-minute episode so far, and at the ends. Steve Bruce, Newcastle, D, E.
Yeah, I'm happy with the D.
Yeah, I don't really care enough to argue, but I think like this squad is absolutely god awful and belongs in the Championship. And half his best players have been out with COVID for like half the season. So I'd just give him like a default C. But like he's not a good Premier League manager, Steve Bruce. He's an amazing Championship manager.
Yeah, and I hate watching Newcastle play.
They're
that
so
just
awful.
Drops it down for me. I think
So
I would give them I'll go D. I think being kind, D+ maybe. Chris Wilder then at Sheffield United. Oh, last season we would have given him such a high like BA, wouldn't we? This season, I think it's a D, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
at kind.
the Jack O'Connell injury, huge, and then Sander Berg injured.
Yeah.
Moussa has obviously been out at various points and just not done anything after his return. Like, they are dull to watch, aren't they? 8.7 shots per night. I think that's only West Brom have a worse record. You want to, again, because of his exploits last season, you want to be favourable, but how?
You know what? We could give him like an E, but like I feel like it's harsh just because of the quality of the squad.
Yeah,
I think
and they're better than they look. They're not the worst team in the league. Like, they aren't.
Yeah.
West Brom are way worse than them.
West Brom is going to be the easiest to grade.
In just a second then. Ralph Hasenhüttl, Southampton. We did discuss him last week, so we won't go into too much detail because the squad isn't great, and we're being kind to say it isn't great. But equally, anything better than a C feels quite
I'd give
optimistic.
a B. I'd give a B.
You love him. You would give a B, wouldn't you?
Have you looked? That's because they're so much better than they should be. Yes, they have bad results, but like this squad is
They are only
so
3
bad.
points ahead of Burnley, though. They are only 3 points ahead of Burnley.
But it doesn't matter.
Is it worse than Burnley?
But it doesn't matter. They're not going to go down. Like, is it worse than Burnley's? I mean, like, well, no. But is it better than like Fulham's? Probably no. Like, I don't know. I think Hasenhüttl's done a really good job. Like, and he's only enhanced his reputation at Southampton. I think a B.
I'd be happy with like a C+ or a B- kind of territory, to be perfectly honest.
All right. Fair play. Tottenham, Jose Mourinho.
D.
Oh, D?
Yeah, they're terrible. Are you serious?
Wow, I think that's harsh. D.
They really strengthened the squad in the summer, but they've played terribly in stretches this season because Mourinho has just fallen out with players for no reason whatsoever. He's got Harry Kane and Heung-min Son are having the seasons of their life, and they're still not in the top 4 places in a season where the top 4 places are not that difficult to get. Like, I just look at Spurs and I'm like, is this what you expected? Like, when you added these players this year, like, the squad is so good. Spurs squad is really, really good. And they're having their 2 best players have amazing seasons. And yet they're not a very good side. Like, I mean, I don't know how I can give them a positive grade. Like, they've been
It is bizarre.
so much worse than they should be.
It's bizarre how you can score 100 goals in all competitions and still be like hovering around 8th or 9th in the Premier League. I know they've got games in hand.
But they're only 2 points. They'll only be 2 points off 4th if they win their game in hand.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter because they're not going to finish in the top 4. And like, okay, look at it this way: like, if you took Kane and Son out of that team, where would they be? If you put Kane and Son in like another team, like Leicester's, where would they be? Like, I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous, like how reliant they are on those players, and I don't think Mourinho gets any credit for it whatsoever. Like he doesn't really deserve it. They would be a better team if he'd been playing Ali all season as the third attacker, but he's refused to because he's an like. So it's just like he has to beef with someone. He has to beef with someone, and it's just so silly. I don't know why. Like he's got such a. I feel like Spurs fans will probably be annoyed because they're like saying that like I'm anti Mourinho, but I don't really see it that way. I just think I'm really pro the Spurs squad. I think it's an excellent squad.
Okay, so Pat's giving it a D. What
minimum? It could be an E.
I'd probably go C-, and I do think it's because like Tottenham fans' expectations, or even Daniel Levy's expectations were like. I don't think they're employing Jose Mourinho to enact some sort of long-term vision or to utilize or to get the most out of this squad. And this is what I take a bit of umbrage with their pursuit of a trophy at any cost, right? League Cup final, I think, is the reason I'm thinking C- territory. Round of 16 in the Europa League, where they have looked pretty impressive. Gareth Bale's little, mid-season renaissance might paper over some of the cracks. If they can win a trophy, like it's a C- minimum for me. And the fact they're still in the hunt for them is why I'm kind of being a little bit more favourable than Pat. But yeah, I think they'll probably look back in 2 or 3 years and think there's a missed opportunity with that team at that time.
They're a negative shot side. They concede more shots than they take. That is ludicrous for that squad.
Yeah, and I think Jose's minimum expectation was to get into that top 4 this season at the moment with the state of it. So, yeah, I agree with you guys.
We're getting more cynical as time goes on.
We are. West Brom, Sam Allardyce, we can be pretty quick with this one. I mean, what are we talking?
E.
C.
Are you going to give Sam Allardyce a C?
Well, the squad's the worst in the league. Like, I don't think that they're worse than they. I think they're better than they were under Bilic, actually. Like, not by a lot because they're still shit, but like, I don't really blame Sam Allardyce for it. Like, they're just a god awful squad. They should never have been promoted.
But they're still conceding 2 goals per game under Sam Allardyce, which was roughly the same as Bilic, but they're just scoring less. Like, I don't think he's responsible for the E in total. Then. Okay, that might be a tiny bit unfair, but like the whole club deserves an E.
Oh, sure, the club deserves minimum an E. But on the other hand, you could say, well, it's not so much that they're having a bad season this year as they had an amazing season last year and got promoted when they probably shouldn't have. Like it's a really difficult one there. Like they're still conceding a lot of goals because they're a terrible squad. Like, and the goal scoring, I don't really think that that's Allardyce's fault. And actually, I want to give him some credit for the players he brought in January as well. Like, I think that Diagne looks like a really good acquisition. I think Maitland-Niles was a good addition to the squad. Like, I think that those were good moves. So I give him a little bit of credit for that as well.
All right, should we meet in the middle then, do a D? If Pat's giving C and we're giving A's, let's meet in the middle and do like a D-ish being. Wolves, Nuno.
Bad.
Yeah, just
I think bad.
Without Neto, I literally wouldn't watch them for longer than 4 minutes.
They're so boring.
Obviously, that Raul Jimenez injury has just decimated the entire team because everything went through him, and I don't think we realised quite how key he was to the system. Maybe we did realise that, to be honest with you. Maybe we did realise just how key he was because it is just hit him and get runners off him, isn't it? And counter-attack.
Well, the system's changed at the same time as well, and they have lost Diogo Jota as well as Jimenez, haven't they? So I mean,
this is one of the worst teams in the league to watch, though. Wolves.
Yeah, I sympathise to an extent, but my God, would rather watch grass grow.
So we're saying D for Nuno?
It's weird because aren't they currently going through their longest unbeaten run of the season? What is it? 1 loss in 7 games, but we're still beating up on them this significantly. I would go D. I think D is actually spot on.
Yeah, D plus.
All right, so those were our ratings for Premier League managers. Should we bother doing any quick fires?
No, we haven't got time.
We've been going for an hour.
That's a full hour.
Save them for next week. We haven't got time.
Yeah, so we haven't got time for any of those, but I hope you enjoyed our grading of Premier League managers. Let us know what you would have graded your manager in the comments below. Yeah, Pato, what did you do on the podcast this week?
We talked about the relegation battle. Henry Hill, resident relegation expert by virtue of being a Fulham fan. We talked about that, and then we talked about like some football myths this season, talking about rumours Anthony Martial could be sold, stuff like that.
Nice. Anything you want to plug, Hamster?
Yeah, go check out our latest explains over on Euro Football Daily. How Rangers destroyed Celtic this season. There you go. That's as magnanimous as I get. Plug in that video.
Oh dear. Yeah, thanks very much for watching, everybody. See you later. Bye.